This is Namiki Haruka. He spent years fighting weak monsters, and now he finally reached the top of the dungeon. The problem is he runs into the worst guy possible, Yukimura Shinji, one of the rank S hunters who refuses to share the same floor with a weak hunter. He tries to fight back but gets destroyed by Shinji's gravity power even at level 100. He still has way lower stats than the other hunters. He gets crushed like paper, beaten and thrown into the abyss of the dungeon to die. Years pass. Now Shinji is in another dungeon about to get wiped out by an impossible boss. Suddenly all the monsters are sliced apart by him. Our protagonist Namiki, now he's stronger, confident, and radiating power. Shinji stares at him shocked that he survived and says hell destroy him again. He tries to use the same gravity power, but against our protagonist the ability does absolutely nothing because our protagonist is level 6000 with insane stats. The desperate bully grabs a woman as a hostage to escape, but in the blink of an eye, Namiki slices through his gut without even trying. The rank S genius drops to his knees, crying and begging for mercy in front of everyone. Our protagonist has reached a level of power that humanity has never seen before, and now everyone will have to bow down before the new god of the dungeon. To understand how he got this strong, let's go back and look at the moment he fell from the dungeon. After the fall, he wakes up without a single scratch. When he opens his status, he realizes everything has been doubled. On top of that, he gains several new abilities, and his level jumped to 101, breaking the limiter. He stands up confused, but feeling light as a feather, and the sword feels like an extension of his body. But when he least expects it, an Orthrus appears, a two-headed dog that spits fire. The dog attacks him, but his new resistance ability activates and shields him from the flames. The appraisal ability activates and starts reading the monster's patterns. In 20 seconds, he predicts the attack. In 36 seconds, he spots the opening and cuts off the head of one of the dogs. The other tries to get revenge, but he shoves the sword into its mouth and the monster drops. And just like that, he gained a new skill. But suddenly, the system started glitching, and Namiki began wondering what kind of power that was. The skill was called Insight, and it let him see the true nature of whatever target he was analyzing. He tried to figure out what that meant because it sounded like the kind of basic skill beginner explorers usually got. If it was that common, why hadn't he gotten it before? Still, he decided to test it and see how it worked. When he activated Insight, he realized that if it weren't for Orthrus level, he might have been able to go even further. Shinji had said he would have been the only one to die, so he probably told Himawari everything that happened during that time. If that was true, Namiki needed to hurry, even though he still felt that weird pain and didn't understand why. Soon, the scan head showed results, and he realized the situation was getting worse. Finding out the Orthrus he fought was only a juvenile was terrifying, and that meant he must have fallen to the 5th floor. If he kept running downstream, he might find a safe area, but he'd still risk running into monsters along the way. When he turned around, he felt a strong killing intent at his back and wondered if it was coming from the entrance. He realized he was in serious trouble, and that at this rate, the monster would catch up to him. All of a sudden, he fell into a trap and couldn't even believe it had come to that. Using his calculation skill, he analyzed the situation, and the system predicted the path of every arrow fired at him with those numbers right in front of his eyes. He knew he had to move fast, but the system warned that a high-level monster was closing in quickly. He started reviewing the info with the Divine Oracle, trying to understand why so many alerts were popping up at once. The enemy was 120 meters away, and was a fire attribute beast. The system calculated the target's level and said he'd need 1,500,000 experience points to advance. The calculations showed he still needed more experience, and 3 minutes passed in the process. Appraisal points started appearing, and the MC was confused by the flood of information pouring into his mind. That's when he heard a growl, and saw another monster burst out angrily behind him. The enemy unleashed a powerful fire attack, forcing Namiki to jump into the water, and he managed to recover, earning more points for it. He was shocked to realize it was real, and when he looked closer, he saw it was an adult Orthros. Just like he thought, the young one had some weird power, and the protagonist barely dodged getting swallowed for the second time. The more he managed to dodge the attacks, the more points he racked up, but he knew he couldn't hold out forever even with things this bad. He realized he'd gotten another points appraisal. He had no idea what those points actually meant, but he knew that with his current stats, he couldn't beat the monster. So the MC started thinking of a way out, because at this rate he'd die of exhaustion, and the system said 3 minutes had already passed. The appraisal points doubled, and along with Divine Sense, new skills were added. There were so many notifications that he got dizzy until the final tally ended at rank A based on combat experience. He received 1,500,000 points and jumped 50 levels all at once. Namiki didn't understand how his points had gone up that much, since he hadn't even defeated the Orthros, and it felt like the system was bugged. Even so, he couldn't waste time thinking about it because he needed to survive. Suddenly a laugh echoed, saying all of this was happening because Head killed that creature's cub. Now the mother was furious, and kept attacking him non-stop, and Namiki wondered where that voice echoing inside his head was coming from. It was a woman's voice invading his mind, saying all of it was the MCS fault, and there was no way to avoid it. He turned around, asking who she was, but the girl replied sleepily that he should figure it out on his own for now. Namiki was confused about who that woman was, and how Shed managed to get into his head. Even without understanding anything, he decided he needed to focus on what was happening around him. He activated his divine speed, the points started being calculated, and suddenly he froze when he realized something was happening outside his control. When he came to, more points had been added, while the flames thrown at him kept being dangerous. Even with his strengthened body, it was unlikely he could hold out much longer. At the level he was at, He'd be reduced to ashes if he got hit directly by those flames, so he decided to use water magic, and without hesitating, fired a powerful stream at the enemy. The attack hit the monster, and the system added more points, making Namiki wonder, since when intermediate magic had that much power, the blow was stronger than he expected, and from the magic circle came something that looked like a water dragon. He didn't understand how that was possible, but he decided to use that strength to survive. Namiki kept attacking with his magic until, finally, the jet pierced through the monster. It was a critical hit, the points went up, and the creature's body dropped to the ground. Even so, the monster was still breathing, showing a terrifying amount of vitality. Without wasting time, Namiki went in for the finishing blow with his sword, and the enemy was finally wiped out. After each analysis was completed, he received even more points until he reached rank. The combat experience was optimized, giving a total of 9 million points. With that, Namiki went up 300 levels and unlocked advanced magic for his 4 attributes. Now he understood that the appraisal skill, which he used to think was useless, analyzed everything to the extreme, even the flow of time. After evolving into divine appraisal, it started automatically calculating the experience needed to level up. On top of that, the skill showed the most efficient methods to gain points, handing out rewards with precision. Experience points were set by the level difference and the actions taken in battle. As a result, he gained a god-rank skill capable of generating huge amounts of experience. That ridiculous amount of experience was enough to earn around 100 essential points. And no wonder Head managed to reach level 100 without divine appraisal. He never would have understood this process, but now he could push past his own limits. Namiki could tell he could become way stronger than before. Maybe now he actually had a real shot at defeating Shinji with his own hands. He got up, convinced he needed to keep fighting to level up even more. He knew it still wasn't enough because surviving there required much greater power, and beating Shinji was still a long way off, but Namiki was determined to get stronger. Thinking of Himawari, he gripped his lucky charm and decided He'd learned to use his appraisal better outside the dungeon. He still meant to face Shinji, while the mysterious girl watched from afar and smiled. As she saw her little dog get defeated, she admitted Head had the guts to use his own power to win. It looked like Head finally fully awakened, and at that moment, Himawari was at home watching the news. The broadcast announced that the Explorers Association would make an urgent statement about the dungeon. That morning, it was declared that the explorer Namiki, rank D, had died on the first floor, and Himawari let her mug fall to the floor, unable to believe what she'd just heard. According to the information released, Shinji Yukimura claimed that Namiki's body was severely damaged, and only his bag with personal belongings had been recovered. Himawari thought that if she'd stopped Namiki from becoming an explorer, everything might have been different, and she started wondering if he was really dead. She was wiping away tears when she heard someone knock at the door, and when she went over, she saw it was Shinji, who hadn't shown up in a while. Himawari looked at him and asked what he wanted, and Shinji replied that he was just passing by and decided to take the opportunity. Then he showed Namiki's bag, saying he wanted to return it, and Himawari recognized it really was his. Without thinking too much, she opened the door to take the bag, which made Shinji smile faintly. The moment Himawari made room, Shinji used his gravity ability to throw her into the house and close the door behind him. He laughed and asked what the problem was. Mocking her as she was pinned to the floor, Himawari asked what he was planning to do. Realizing she couldn't use her strength to fight back, Shinji came closer asking if she was okay. But she slapped his hand away, pulling another laugh out of him. Just like you'd expect from an explorer who survived the so-called sweet floor, she had stronger than normal willpower. Even under the pressure of gravity. She tried to get up, and Shinji asked if she was still shaken by Namiki's death at that moment. Himawari started to realize something was seriously wrong with him. While Shinji noticed his hypnosis didn't work so easily on her still, he knew she was at a disadvantage, and Himawari demanded to know why he was doing that. Shinji answered by stomping on Namiki's bag, saying he'd been watching his childhood friend for a long time. That boy who wasn't strong, but was always kind, kept ignoring someone like him. Over time, Namiki seemed happier and happier, and Shinji said he couldn't forgive him for that. He believed he had to make the MC suffer until he fell into real despair. But now that Namiki supposedly had died, Shinji laughed and said he loved watching other people's sadness with tears in her eyes. Himawari called him trash for completely losing control. Shinji just smiled and increased the gravity pressure on her, saying calling him that was rude. He claimed he was perfectly normal while she was a talented and admired rank explorer. A lot of people respected her, so she shouldn't use such vulgar words. He even said Namiki would be sad in the afterlife if he were seeing that scene. Himawari didn't understand why he had to go that far because of the MC Shinji side, saying he was tired of that conversation, and cranked his ability up even more. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Namiki looked back when he sensed another monster's presence, but his detection failed to identify the creature. He heard the woman's voice again, saying humans always tried to figure out everything about their enemies way too fast. She said Shed suffered because of that before, and that this time Shed prepared in advance. Namiki started wondering if the monster Head faced earlier had already fought another explorer. A water dragon that could speak human language was unheard of, and he didn't have enough information about her. The woman explained she just wanted to talk, and asked why he was staying quiet right then. She said a one-sided conversation didn't get anywhere, and that to be strong you had to be firm and imposing. Even so, Namiki replied that she seemed like the type who talked non-stop. She asked if he was mocking her, and he hesitated, but ended up agreeing for a moment. She seemed to understand his position, but soon she got irritated, and moved in with the intent to kill him, reminding him that to her, he was nothing but a mere human. The woman said that just because he defeated her dog, he shouldn't get so full of himself. Then the MC activated his body reinforcement, trying to look stronger, but deep down he knew he still needed a real chance to win. If he could make good use of divine appraisal in that place, maybe he could evolve fast enough to even out the fight. That's why he couldn't hesitate, and he needed to get out of there alive before coming back to settle things with Shinji. Namiki got ready to attack and thought about creating a blind spot with fire before rushing in with a straight slash. He unleashed a full-power fire attack, while the creature just watched, curious about his power. Then he used his magic called Frenzied Dance of Flames, summoning a giant phoenix that spread chaos through the dungeon. Even so, the beast dodged easily and laughed, saying this was her territory, and she knew it better than anyone. She explained he only managed to defeat the previous one because of a difference in power, but now she would take control of his magic and cancel it out effortlessly. Namiki realized too late Head never even heard of magic control, and she laughed when she noticed his ignorance. She mentioned she used Annihilation class magic, something way beyond what he knew, and Namiki wondered if she could even read his thoughts. Annihilation class meant an insane level of power, something Head never imagined could exist. She explained there was still mythic class between advanced and annihilation, making it clear just how far above him she was. To nullify magic like his, just a special class would be enough. Namiki realized that despite everything, she seemed to be teaching him that pretty calmly, and she said he still wasn't any kind of threat. If he wanted to compete with her, He'd need at least 4,000 power points. The MC was shocked at the idea that someone could reach level 4,000, because that seemed impossible. He opened his status and confirmed he was level 452, with all attributes at rank B. Even so, he realized he was already strong enough to defeat an advanced Orthros that just showed she was on a completely different level, and Namiki started wondering who she really was. He tried to look at the situation calmly. While she said that last time, she suffered for acting without caution. She said it all started with Orochi, who in recent years had been coming out of the dungeons and attacking cities. Orochi was an extremely high-ranked dragon, with terrifying strength and destructive fire. Even rank explorers struggled against it, forcing the association to gather the strongest. A special team was created to subdue Orochi, and during the battle some weaknesses were discovered. They changed their strategy to something more aggressive, but even then they couldn't defeat it. Hearing that, Namiki started to suspect that the one talking to him might be Orochi itself. If that was true, he wouldn't stand a chance with his current strength and needed to think of a way to escape. To buy time, he decided to keep talking, and asked why she was interested in someone as weak as him. She replied it was pure curiosity, wanting to understand how a human that weak managed to steal part of her power. She said that was the real reason she was talking to him. And suddenly a hand appeared from a magic circle. The hand offered an item, and Namiki was shocked as he asked where that had come from. She replied that she took it from humans' belongings while swishing her many tails. Namiki wondered if that meant there were other creatures like her out there causing destruction. From the way she spoke, he realized that arm coming from the magic circle belonged to Orochi's true main body. Orochi noticed had gone quiet again, and asked if it was because he didn't know what to say, or because he simply didn't want to answer. Namiki thought that according to her head need at least level 4000 to face her on equal footing. As things were, there was no way he could win, but he decided to use his skill called God's Test. The skill activated and began analyzing the enemy's level, looking for any possible strategy. While the system ran the numbers, Namiki realized he could use that information to get out of this situation. The analysis concluded he would need 25 million experience points to reach the next power jump. Orochi was surprised when Namiki suddenly lunged forward, yanking hard on the arm coming out of the magic circle. He managed to destroy her right arm, ripping out a scream of pain, exactly as the system finished the evaluation. For dealing damage to a disaster rank creature like Orochi, he received 25 million points and jumped straight to level 2200. On top of that, he unlocked a new skill and was stunned by his own ridiculous growth. It was hard to even believe, but he gained a technique called ultra-physical enhancement. He understood that God's Test had suggested that specific move, so he decided to cut the arm at the right moment. Even wounded, Orochi admitted that human had pulled off something impressive. Furious, she couldn't accept that head used a surprise attack to hurt her like that. Namiki apologized, but said he couldn't waste time, because he needed to stop Shinji. He knew Himawari was a rank explorer strong enough to defend herself. Still, a bad feeling made him decide he needed to get to her as fast as possible. Orochi realized he was distracted by his own thoughts and decided she wouldn't just stand there watching. After having her arm torn off, she decided she'd kill him personally once and for all. She ordered her tails to keep him busy until she could face him directly and launched an attack he barely dodged. Namiki realized it wasn't just her arm that was powerful, but also the huge monstrous body in front of him. The pressure coming off her was suffocating, and even with the level up he wasn't sure he could win. He activated God's Test again, checked the info he got and reinforced his own body. Even feeling intense pain he charged at her, but was thrown back without any effort. The impact was so strong that he dropped his sword, trying to make sense of the sharp pain shooting through his body, unable to put strength into his attacks. He watched things get worse while the system ran new calculations. When he read the result he froze, asking himself if that meant he could still win. The answer suggested using ultra-physical enhancement, and even confused, he decided not to hesitate when he activated the skill. His body started to burn like it was on fire, surprising Orochi. Feeling like he could lose control at any moment, he grabbed his sword and cut the monster in half. The system confirmed the target had been eliminated, and that God's Test was complete. All damage and actions were tallied up, and the points started getting added again. The final result was rank AA, reflecting his combat experience and granting almost 11 million points. With that, Namiki jumped another 600 levels all at once. At the same time, Shinji was on a call, asking for immediate transport while watching Himawari lying on the ground. After the battle, Namiki also picked up 3 new skills: mental mapping, weakness detection, and a boost to his insight. Namiki felt his head spinning, probably from overusing ultra body fortification. He collapsed to the ground, spitting blood, as intense pain took over his body, not understanding what was happening. When he opened his status, he realized his physical condition was critical, and even his alcohol level was at a ridiculous level. No wonder everything was spinning, and he understood he couldn't abuse that skill like that. When he looked back, he saw something strange coming out of the defeated monster's body. like a gas drifting away that meant that even dead, it might still be alive. Somehow the gas seemed to be heading toward the main body. And he remembered he needed at least level 4000 to face Orochi with his current strength. There was no way he could beat the main body, and before that he needed to go back to stop Shinji. He had to stop that guy, and then he noticed a cell phone lying on the ground. It was the same object Orochi had sent through the magic circle, so he decided to pick it up. Namiki took off running and activated mental mapping, which revealed something shocking. He found out he wasn't on the 5th floor, but the 20th. That was the deepest point any explorer had ever reached, and he himself had only gone as far as the 10th floor before. He never imagined Head dropped from the 1st to the 20th floor after Shinji's attack. Using the God's test, he confirmed he was now moving through the 18th floor, while his target was on the 25th. The system calculated they'd make contact in about 45 minutes. But before that, Orochi's main body could reach him. The calculation also started estimating the level needed to defeat the enemy, and the experience points required. While he was thinking of a way out, he got an alert about multiple high-level monsters detected ahead. Soon several monsters appeared in his path, and he realized he didn't have time to waste. His only option was to keep leveling up as fast as possible. He used his skills to analyze the enemies and identify their weaknesses. Namiki focused on watching, adapting his strategy, and exploiting every vulnerable spot to take them down precisely. He took out 3 Baphomets, boosting his points and clearing another stage of the God's test. His levels went up again. But the pain in his body got worse too. When he turned, he saw a 3-headed monster charging and fired off a powerful water attack. The hit landed dead on and blew off one of the Cerberus heads with a fast critical. But the creature was still alive, so he decided to keep fighting and take down everything that showed up in his way. His goal was to refine the God's test until he squeezed the most out of it. After more analysis, he got around 70,000 experience points. With that, he reached level 3000 and unlocked a new skill called Double Slash. He was surprised to get such a rare sword technique, but he realized the battle was far from over. The remaining Baphomets seemed to have called in reinforcements, and the monsters were muttering to each other in a weird way. Even with his stamina at its limit, Namiki thought of Himawari and decided he couldn't go down there. That's when he felt an even bigger presence closing in, and turned to see what it was. Behind him, a huge reeded creature appeared, way bigger than the other monsters. The attack came out of nowhere and sent him flying back. While he tried to figure out why there were golems on that floor, maybe the monsters were working together, because several Baphomets activated magic circles at the same time with no time to react. Namiki was almost hit by the sudden barrage of magic attacks. He was grabbed by the leg as he fell, yanked by a magic circle, and realized he needed to act fast. The God's test reset, and started putting together a new strategy while he was stuck there, surrounded by several Baphomets ready to attack. When the calculations finished, Namiki followed the optimized move and used Double Slash to hit the enemies. He took out the ones closest to him, while the others kept firing attacks from a distance. Namiki kept pushing forward non-stop, and his evaluation points kept climbing, but the constant use of his skills left him exhausted and in pain, and right then a golem came up from behind to attack him. Meanwhile, Himawari was trapped in a locked room, and woke up after being unconscious for a long time. Shinji Yukimura asked, laughing, if she'd finally woken up. He said his charm only worked at first, and that he was impressed by her willpower. He said it was easier when there were several women around, and Himawari demanded to know what he wanted. Shinji grabbed her face and said Head never liked her, because her eyes showed she still believed Namiki was alive. He couldn't understand how she could say the MC wasn't worthy of being an explorer, and still seem like she cared. Himawari said that, after a certain incident, Namiki became obsessed with getting stronger. He started risking his own life, so she asked him to stop before he got seriously hurt. Even so, she said the choice to keep going was his because he was living his own life, and deep down, she believed he wouldn't die that easily, so she wanted to believe he was still alive. At the same time, Namiki faced the golem and used water magic to destroy its body with that. He cleared another stage of the God's Trial, got 9 million experience points, and leveled up even more. He didn't want to die there because he still wanted to go back to Himawari no matter what. The system announced Head reached level 600, and that his reconstruction would begin immediately. Confused, Namiki wondered what that reconstruction was supposed to mean. His body felt heavy, like it was falling apart from the inside. When the pain eased up, he saw more monsters surrounding him. While Baphomet's muttered nonsense, he realized there was a barrier around him and tried to figure out what it was. The god's trial restarted, points began getting tallied, and he tried to grab his sword just as new attacks came flying and Namiki ran to dodge and managed to neutralize the blows once again. But the Baphomets didn't stop, and he had to use double slash over and over to counter magic with magic. The neutralizations kept earning him points, and 30 minutes went by with him doing nothing but defending. Exhausted, he felt like his body could give out at any moment because of the barrier. He couldn't counterattack directly like before. The pain was constant and he started messing up some dodges. Even in trouble, the god's trial finally ended and started adding up the points. He got another 8 million experience and gained several levels in just a few minutes. Now he was level 3 team 2 at his 8, only 200 levels were left to hit the minimum needed and trigger that reconstruction thing. He still didn't understand what it meant, and then Orochi appeared in front of him, noticing how exhausted he was. Namiki turned and saw Orochi's original body, who said she was finally there in her main form. She looked humanoid and worn out, since Shed spent all that time making her way to him. Namiki wondered how Shed managed to catch up to him across 5 floors in just a few minutes. She passed through the barrier and came closer, seeing the mess head left along the way. That's when he realized all the monsters Head fought up to that point had been under her orders. Orochi asked if he was listening, but Namiki got confused when he noticed her stare was locked on his right arm. He was sure Head cut that arm off, so he didn't get how it was back, and he started wondering if she could regenerate. Noticing what he was looking at, Orochi said it hurt a bit, but losing a piece of her own body was no big deal. Even wounded, she admitted Shed loved to kill him right then. But first she wanted him to give back something that belonged to her. Not getting it, the MC asked what she was talking about, and Orochi got annoyed, saying he knew exactly what she meant. She pointed at the thing Head picked up off the floor, and Namiki realized it was the phone. He asked if he could leave if he gave it back. But Orochi said that's not how it worked. She admitted he was stronger than before, even if it still wasn't enough to beat her. Namiki also realized he was still nowhere close, since he needed 200 more levels to face her on equal footing. If he kept going at that pace, his body would give out from the pain and exhaustion. Before then, Orochi warned Shed kill him if he didn't return what had taken, and the system restarted the divine trial. With no time to waste, Namiki decided it was all or nothing, while the system calculated the experience he needed and adjusted his actions. He lunged with his double slash at Orochi, who blocked it, taking only a light scratch on her cheek and already getting ready to counterattack. She mocked him, saying that scratch was pathetic for a special attack, while Namiki's experience jumped by 13 million and his levels shot up fast. When he hit level 4000, his body started reconstructing right away, and a sudden explosion made Orochi flinch. When the smoke cleared, Namiki realized his body had changed with the evolution, and Orochi felt a different kind of pressure coming off him. The MC wasn't feeling pain anymore, and at the same time, his senses were even sharper. Seeing how things were, Orochi ordered her monsters to attack, taking what she thought was the best chance. They all threw their attacks at once. Namiki simply jumped and slipped through the attacks like they were nothing, leaving Orochi shocked by his strength and speed. In just a few moments he shut down everything coming at him. Even though it seemed impossible, Namiki activated the divine test again, and the analysis finished in seconds. The system revealed that Orochi was a disaster-class monster, with 12 units under her command. His new skill let him land solidly. Even under another wave of attacks, Namiki charged at the monsters, and Orochi was stunned to see his speed jump again. He beat down everyone who appeared in front of him with ease, pushing his evolved double slash to the limit. The strikes multiplied, wiping out the monsters without giving them any chance to react. The system updated his stats, showing that now he could face Orochi head-on. She noticed several openings in his movements, mainly in his back, and decided to attack from there. But the shot only grazed his shoulder because the protagonist dodged and sprinted sideways at the last second. Annoyed, Orochi clicked her tongue and fired a water bullet that chased him. That's when she saw Namiki pop up in several places at the same time. Like Head split himself, shocked by the new ability. Orochi ended up getting hit by attacks coming from all directions. Just like that, Namiki defeated her, letting out a breath when the system confirmed the target had been eliminated. He took a deep breath and realized Head won everything on his own. Looking at the destruction around him, even so, he couldn't stop wondering what he was turning into. Since Head entered that floor, the feeling of making those cuts was still fresh, but Namiki could only vaguely remember what Head done, even though she was a monster. Orochi was a super high-rank creature, and it was almost impossible to face her in that state. At least the crisis had been avoided thanks to his abilities awakening, and now he needed to get out of there while he still could. Suddenly, a voice echoed in a loud laugh, saying she never imagined she'd be defeated so easily. When he turned around, Namiki was met with an unbelievable sight. The monster's body was glowing, and she kept talking like nothing had happened. Stunned, he wondered if she was immortal, while Orochi laughed and admitted she'd underestimated him, even after that brutal attack. Maybe it was better to finish him off by going all out at once. After all, it had been a long time since anyone had managed to turn the tables on her. The system warned that magical energy was rising fast, blowing past the previous threat levels. Namiki watched her body knitting itself back together while she laughed at his expression. Her creatures also got ready to fight, and he had to cover his eyes from the blast of light coming at him. When he could see again, he saw Orochi surrounded by several other monsters. He could barely believe all those creatures had been hidden inside her the whole time. The demon stroked one of the monsters and said he must be so shocked he couldn't even scream. She laughed again, saying nobody would expect something like that after everything that had happened. That was because the protagonist had forced her to fight seriously, and now she didn't need to hold back anymore. Orochi whipped her tails at him, while the monsters rushed in at the same time. Barely, Namiki managed to dodge and activated the divine test again. The system updated the info on the opponent, revealing the main body with 6 tails. Each creature had different abilities, and even weaker than the main body, they were strong enough to keep him moving non-stop. He took off running, but the monsters were still way too many, boxing him in from all sides. Even after evolving, Namiki wasn't strong enough to take everything on by himself under pressure. He ended up getting bitten by one of them and fell to the ground. His body got thrown far, and he lost his sword during the fall. Getting back up pissed off with the monsters so well coordinated, there was no room for mistakes. The system confirmed major blood loss after the bite on his right shoulder. Orochi walked up, taunting him by asking where his speed and power had gone. Taking advantage, she ordered the monsters to finish him off once and for all. Namiki wondered how he could beat her in a situation even worse than at the start. He tried to think of some way, some opening he could use to fight back. That feeling of being in control and winning with his own power vanished all of a sudden. If he used that ability again, maybe it would change the game, but it could also leave him even more hurt. With the divine test, he calculated the most efficient actions and decided to follow the plan it pointed out. A force started to grow inside him, intense and out of control. When the monster attacked, Namiki managed to dodge and went for a counterattack. With his sword in hand, he threw it at the creature's teeth, but they withstood the impact. Even so, he could feel the enemy's power was overwhelming in the end, awakening that strength wasn't enough and he was still being outmatched. His body burned with pain and his vision spun, until he was hit head-on by the fire. He was hurled far away by a chain of attacks from the monsters, one after another. Without a break, the pressure was so intense that the system activated a damage reduction skill. But it wasn't enough to block everything. He almost died right then, barely avoiding a fatal blow before collapsing to the ground. Orochi shouted, asking how long he was going to keep pretending, and ordered the monsters to finish him off already. Even so, Namiki kept trying to think of some strategy he could use to his advantage. That's when the demon herself asked why he was just standing there, and he realized there was one monster different from the others. The creature was just licking the blood on its hand, and the others started staring at it, curious. Orochi didn't understand what was going on, but something was clearly wrong. Suddenly, all the monsters seemed woozy. After tasting Namiki's blood, they stopped being threatening, and became weirdly docile, leaving even Orochi speechless with that empty, goofy look. They seemed completely out of it, and Namiki finally started to get it. The fortification had earlier raised the alcohol level in his blood, giving a drunk feeling by drinking his blood. The monsters went into a state like Berserker, only drunk. Just like in the legend of Yamada no Orochi, and its connection to booze, that could be used to his advantage. Namiki smiled while Orochi screamed for the monsters to snap out of it and stop acting like that. She was furious, but she couldn't make them obey even knowing what had happened before. The creatures kept acting like idiots. When Orochi turned around, she saw the MC draw more blood from his own arm. If they wanted that liquid so badly, then he'd give them more. Shocked, Orochi asked what he was planning, and Namiki activated his enhanced physical fortification. He taunted the monsters, calling them all at once to come fight. The creatures rushed in, and he felt that amount of blood would be enough to turn the tables. As soon as the first one attacked him, it got drunk again and stopped moving, just like he expected. But before Namiki could take advantage of it, pain flooded his body, and he doubled over. Another monster charged, and he barely dodged, climbing up the creature's scales to get away. Even so, he called again for them to drink even more of his blood. Soon they were all drunk, and he even asked if they were enjoying it. With the monsters distracted, he knew he couldn't waste the opportunity. That's when Orochi appeared from behind and stabbed him, saying he overthought things at the worst times. Despite her smile, Namiki had already expected that move and turned in time, calling her predictable. She'd done the same thing before, and now he could read her movements and anticipate the attack. Surprised, Orochi asked what he was planning to do, but he grabbed her before she could pull back. His intention was clear: make her drink his blood too. She struggled and told him to stop, but it was already too late. The effect hit fast, and Orochi started getting drunk, still begging him to let her go. When he let her go, Namiki backed up a few steps. She managed to stand, but now she was clearly affected. Even drunk, she still threatened him. While he felt his own consciousness slipping little by little, it was the perfect chance. So he decided to fight to the end. Even on the verge of passing out, he rushed in to cut her down, while Orochi yelled at the monsters, not understanding why they still weren't reacting. Instead of reacting, the monsters just sighed and lay down on the ground, going still, and Orochi asked what was happening. Taking advantage of the opening, the protagonist activated his physical reinforcement skill again to attack. She turned around, worried, realizing that at this rate they could all actually die for real. Without hesitating, he charged in and cut down all the monsters again, leveling up as he defeated each one. Namiki reached level 6000. At the same time, Himawari was still trapped in the room when she saw someone open the door. A girl came in, and Himawari recognized Aoi. Asking why she was there, Aoi said it had been a long time since they'd seen each other, and that she got a message from Shinji asking her to visit. Suspicious, Himawari asked if Aoi had fallen for Shinji's charms, which confused the other girl and made Himawari even more irritated. She wanted to know if Aoi was being manipulated and tried to make her see it, but Aoi asked her to stop bad-mouthing Shinji, saying he saved her and was a good person. That's why Aoi kept insisting Namiki was dead, and that in that tough moment, Shinji had comforted both her body and her mind. To Himawari, that only proved her friend's mind was under hypnosis. Aoi also complained that the MC had always ignored her, which made her feel jealous of Himawari for a long time. Himawari was left speechless when she heard that. Aoi vented that she hated both of them for what they'd done, even if Himawari didn't understand why. After all, they'd always been close and got along well. Crying, Himawari said she saw Aoi like a little sister and wanted to stay close to her. Just then, Shinji walked into the room, saying he didn't want to interrupt such a serious conversation. Aoi happily went up to him and he gently held her face, saying she should get along with Himawari. She apologized for getting emotional, and Shinji told Himawari she should be kind to her adorable little sister. But Himawari yelled, demanding to know why he was using hypnosis to do horrible things. Shinji said it was her fault for being too stubborn to give in. His charm never worked on Himawari, and she asked what he thought he was doing acting like this. He said he'd been contacted by the Explorers Association. The association wanted him to join the extermination team against Orochi, so he was planning to include Aoi and Himawari on his team. He meant to force Himawari to cooperate, and Aoi was there as part of that plan. Holding on to him intimately, Aoi complained that his touch tickled, which made Himawari furious at the sight. Smiling, Shinji declared that Himawari would be on the team, whether she wanted to or not, because he wasn't going to leave Aoi alone. Meanwhile, Namiki's vitality had dropped to 5, and his condition was critical. Even on the verge of death, he still felt like he was alive, but there were only 137 seconds left. He didn't understand how he was still conscious. He only felt the warmth of someone touching his skin. Without realizing it, his head was resting in Oroka's lap while the system warned there were 90 seconds left. The demon herself knew it, and Namiki thought he should have decapitated her earlier. Orochi said it was a shame, but explained they were made up of 8 entities and would only die if all of them were defeated. Namiki grumbled that she was still a monster, and Orochi seemed offended by the word. Even so, she admitted Head surprised them and almost wiped them out completely. Smiling, she said they would accept him, as the remaining time dropped to 30 seconds. Confused, Namiki didn't understand what she meant, and Orochi got impatient at having to explain it again. There were 10 seconds left until the protagonist died, and Orochi realized things were truly critical. She had to act fast. So she pulled something out from inside a magic circuit, while he asked what she was planning to do. Without really answering, she just smiled and drove the dagger into his chest. Then she wished her master good night, and the system began the divine observation. The synchronization between Namiki and Orochi started to rise, and the system confirmed the connection between the two. With that, new abilities were unlocked, and his stats shot up drastically. When the MC woke up, he saw one of the monsters beside him and sat up in a panic. But he realized the creature was only watching him. With no hostility at all, he looked for his sword, but couldn't find it. Instead, his hand touched something unexpected, and he realized Orochi was lying next to him. Startled again, he tried to figure out how his enemy was there, sleeping peacefully. To make it worse, he noticed he was completely naked, which made everything even weirder. Not knowing what to say, he got up to look for his things and get out of there as fast as possible. One of the monsters came up and rubbed against him, and Namiki quietly asked it to stop. The noise woke Orochi up, and she complained before noticing he was standing. She smiled, happy to see her master was awake, and soon he found new clothes to put on. Orochi praised how the clothes suited him, even though they were pieces Shed stolen from humans in the dungeon. Still, they were clothes with magical protection, made especially for him, which made him ask for an explanation. Namiki didn't understand how he was alive after everything that happened. Orochi then realized she still hadn't explained anything, and the two of them sat down to talk. She said they'd made a contract because he had died once, but managed to synchronize his body with hers before the end. The protagonist realized then that the memory of the dagger in his chest was real. If that was true, he figured he was in the same state as her now, and asked if Head become a monster. Orochi said no, explaining that from now on he was just linked to her. Confused, he asked what that meant. Thinking about how to show him, she asked him to close his eyes, and told him to let her borrow his. Even without fully understanding, Namiki agreed and asked what her real name was. She realized Shed never properly introduced herself, even though people called her Orochi. Her real name was Hachi, and then he closed his eyes and did what she asked. All of a sudden, he felt something weird, like he was seeing himself from the outside. Hachi asked what it was like to see his own body from her point of view. He admitted it was strange, but he was finally starting to get it. Basically, now he could use Hachi's powers. She laughed, happy that he caught on so fast. His stats had gone way up because of the bond, and she decided Shed explain it better later. Meanwhile, the Explorers Association was meeting in a conference room on the 3rd floor. The leader of the subjugation squad, the rank B explorer Ishihara Katsuhiko, gathered everyone to discuss Oroka's defeat over the last few days. The attacks in the dungeons connected to her had increased. They'd only managed to hold back some of Oroka's tales and help the affected cities, even with support from the police and investigators. The damage was huge, and several areas had to be rebuilt. According to Ayaka Kyagoku, they knew Orochi had 6 different forms and already knew some weaknesses. Thanks to the last battle, Oroka's weakness was a high concentration of alcohol in previous fights. When they managed to inject alcohol into her, it caused major damage. They now understood why monsters could get drunk like humans, and the legend of Yamada no Orochi seemed to make sense. Ishihara explained they were working with a big company to get an enormous amount of alcohol. The plan was to get ready immediately, and use the dungeon's 4th floor as the battlefield. They would lure Orochi there and get her drunk enough to finish her off. Ayaka stressed that everyone needed to fight together and announced that someone would handle the front line. Right then, a voice spoke up telling them to leave everything to him, and the one who walked into the room was Shinji, accompanied by several girls. Ishihara knew who he was and, trying to be polite, asked if he could really handle the mission. Shinji laughed, assuring him his team was ready. Ishihara was surprised to see that, besides a strong group, Himawari was also by his side. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Hachi moved with Namiki inside a sphere of water that slid along the river. He was impressed by how practical the magic was, and started to understand why he lost so many battles. Now it made sense how Shed reached so many floors so fast. Traveling through the water, Hachi laughed, saying it was amazing, but also exhausting to use magic like that. She said it would be easier if she could turn into a dragon. Namiki asked why she wasn't doing that now. Hachi hesitated, and he realized he'd hit a sensitive topic. She confirmed she didn't want to talk about that right now. Thinking it was weird, he dropped it when she explained they needed to get out of the dungeon urgently. That was when Hachi started calling him Lord Namiki, which made him uncomfortable. She said it was natural to call him that since he was her master now. Even while protesting, he ended up explaining why they were in such a hurry. Namiki said he needed to save Himawari from Shinji's dirty plans. Hearing the name, Hachi asked if Himawari was his lover. He denied it, saying she was just someone he really admired. Hachi laughed, but didn't explain why. While the MC thought that maybe now he could face Shinji on the 4th floor, several explorers were gathering in the dungeon's big plaza with their supplies. They brought down countless barrels of alcohol, and even Himawari was helping. Ashihara walked up and asked if he could talk for a moment. She agreed, and he thanked her for helping with the mission against Orochi. He said it was impressive to see a genius girl debut as an explorer. While still in high school, Himawari had reached rank A in record time and become a role model for many. Ayaka warned him for letting his over-the-top excitement show, and he apologized. Then he asked why Shed joined Shinji's group. Since his reputation wasn't good, Himawari hesitated. Remembering the threats involving offline and the humiliation Shed witnessed when she went quiet, Ashihara asked if something was wrong. But she said no, and that Shed just known Shinji for a while. Inside, she promised Shed save offline no matter what. Watching Shinji surrounded by girls, including offline under hypnosis, she thought that if Namiki were there, everything might be different. Shinji noticed her look and smiled cruelly. Knowing it hurt her even so, Himawari decided she wouldn't waver and that Shed find a way to break his spell. Suddenly, someone reported that something like Orochi had been detected approaching, and everyone was hurriedly gathered. On the 4th floor in the big plaza, the explorers identified 15 humanoid forms. Soon the MC noticed it beforehand and told Hachi to stop for a moment. Even though she didn't understand why, she slammed on the brakes, and he complained about how sudden it was. But Hachi reminded him he was the one who told her to stop. Namiki explained there were scouts nearby, and they were aiming at her. Confused, Hachi tried to understand better, until he showed her the phone head picked up earlier. When she saw the screen, she recognized her children in the news about the subjugation group's 8th operation. That's when she realized the enemies were gathered there and asked what they should do. Namiki said they needed to watch first, and he activated the god test using the skill. He was shocked to see Himawari and Shinji together. Looks like they told her the protagonist was dead, and she believed it. Even so, he wondered what had happened in the meantime, and Hachi noticed it too. She knew Shinji was the one responsible for Namiki's suffering, and that he wasn't someone you could trust. Next to him was the girl her master admired, which made Hachi chuckle softly. Meanwhile, Shinji told Himawari they'd be on the front line, and that she needed to stand out. Ui giggled and told Himawari not to embarrass Shinji. Shinji laughed at the jab, and Ui apologized while laughing, while Himawari stayed silent. She wanted to break his spell, but she didn't know how, and she needed to keep a close eye on Ui. Maybe the battle against Orochi would be the chance she'd been waiting for. Suddenly, everyone stopped when they heard a scream coming from far away. A man handed binoculars to Ishibara, saying a massive heat source had been detected. The leader moved in, thinking it was Orochi, but what appeared was a horde of monsters chasing a woman. It looked like she was being hunted, and Ishibara ordered them to prioritize her safety. The plan was to rescue the woman while Shinji's team dealt with Orochi. The scouts agreed with the strategy. Shinji accepted the orders too. Even though he found the leader annoying, he told his team to move out, and the girls rushed in to attack. They used their powers to take on the creatures, while Shinji smiled and called for Himawari to fight too. With no choice, she reluctantly agreed. When the woman being chased fell to the ground, saying she was scared, Himawari ran to help her with a sword strike. She drove the monster back and asked if she was okay. The woman said yes, thanking her for saving her. Other scouts arrived to protect her, leaving the monsters to Himawari. The first step of the plan had worked, and Hachi, disguised as the woman, realized that really was the girl Namiki admired. She admitted to herself that Himawari wasn't half bad. As she passed by Shinji, he noticed how beautiful she was, and thought about using his charm on her later. Hachi internally thought he really had zero class. Still, she waited for the right moment to act while everyone was gathered there. She decided to stop using the tails as a distraction. Himawari noticed the monster she was fighting suddenly changed direction. The creature started flying toward Shinji and the other girls, making everyone tense. Not knowing how to react, Shinji turned around in alarm when he saw the monster flying straight at him, and when he tried to run, a huge explosion went off behind him. He didn't understand why the creature was focused only on him. He decided to use his gravity ability to pin the monster down, and activated the power right away. But to his surprise, the ability was cancelled the moment it started working. It was Hachi's doing. She laughed to herself as she used magic nullification and let the monsters pressure the scout. Shinji fell to the ground and yelled at his team, ordering them to protect him. The girls, still under hypnosis, obeyed immediately, but before they could act, Himawari stepped in front. She took the hit hidden and went down, and Hachi whispered angrily, calling her an idiot for throwing herself in like that. She knew her master would be furious if he saw that Himawari tried to get up while Aoi watched, confused, not understanding the reason for the sacrifice. She said she had to protect Aoi and Namiki because they were like her disciples. Even so, Shinji's hypnosis kicked back in, and he ordered Aoi not to use her powers without permission. Himawari panicked when she saw her friend suffering under his control. Shinji then threatened, if Himawari didn't face Orochi, Aoi would pay the price. Himawari screamed for him to stop, and Hachi sighed, realizing things were getting out of hand while passing the information to the MC. Hachi summoned another tail, startling the scouts, but before they could react, several monsters were cut down in an instant. Himawari froze when she saw who was coming closer, and recognized the MC right away. Stunned, she asked if it was really him, and Namiki smiled before running over when he saw she almost fell. She said she was fine, which made him let out a sigh of relief, but he still wanted to know how he was there. What shocked her the most was feeling the change in his aura, especially after seeing him take down Orochi with a single move. Namiki sighed and said a lot had happened. Asking what she was doing there, Himawari explained she wanted to retrieve his belongings that were left behind, and looked at Shinji, still on the ground. The protagonist also stared at the explorer, and Shinji took a moment before recognizing him. Shocked, he asked how he was still alive after so long in the dungeon. Namiki understood the question. After all, Shinji had killed him before everything changed. Himawari turned around, surprised to hear that, because she'd always suspected something was off. Shinji laughed, saying she was making up nonsense accusations. Pointing at Namiki, he mocked him for being just a level 100 weakling. He said beating Orochi by luck didn't make him strong in the distance. Hachi got irritated by the disrespect, but the MC was the one who answered. His aura exploded, and the explorers around them froze under the crushing pressure. Even Shinji locked up, unable to understand that kind of power. Ayaka's jaw dropped, realizing this was different from anything they'd ever seen. The readings showed level 6000, with abilities impossible to measure. The two stood face to face for a few seconds, until Namiki took a step forward. Shinji backed up, scared, and AI asked if he was okay. Noticing the obvious fear, furious, he yelled at her to shut up and slapped her across the face. Himawari ran to help AI, but the protagonist froze because he didn't recognize her right away. Laughing, Shinji mocked the situation, saying it was pathetic to run into someone and not even remember who they were. AI stayed silent on the ground, while Namiki asked if he'd been using hypnosis on her this whole time. Shinji laughed and told the MC to check for himself if it was true, since he'd also been trying to use the same trick on his idol. Surprised, Namiki looked at Himawari, and she explained she thought she could handle everything alone. After hearing about his death, unfortunately, the plan didn't work, and she ended up falling into Shinji's manipulation. Even though she was an A-rank adventurer, his powers weren't enough to fully control her, but that didn't bother him. Instead, he decided to use AI, someone more vulnerable, and took her over with his hypnosis. AI started getting pressured again by his power, begging him to stop, which only made Namiki even angrier. Then she screamed for the two of them to stop, saying she was doing it for Shinji's sake, and lunged to attack. The protagonist blocked the non-stop strikes. Feeling the killing intent behind them, he was shocked by the insane strength she was showing, clearly boosted by Shinji's powers that didn't feel like the real AI, and Himawari got ready to face Shinji directly. The explorer laughed when he saw her in his way, and warned her she was making a mistake. Namiki tried to bring AI back to her senses, but she screamed that Head never noticed her feelings. Hachi commented that her master seemed way too busy, which caught him off guard, but she already knew what to do without hesitating. She jumped into the fight to help. Shinji's eyes went wide when he saw the woman from before leap in close to them. Hachi fired off a destruction spell called Extra Present. Hitting AI dead on after the impact, AI froze for a moment and then came back to her senses, confused. The MC asked if she was okay, and she stared at him, still trying to process it. Relieved, he realized she'd broken free of the hypnosis and watched her stand up and pick up her sword again. She said she needed to say something important, while Hachi walked up laughing. Pleased with the result, Namiki understood that Hachi had destroyed the enchantment magic that was holding AI. Shinji, totally lost, asked what had just happened, but no one paid him any attention, because Hachi only wanted to get close to her master after helping the protagonist complained about how clingy she was, but promised Head praise her later, which made her happy. AI watched the scene and asked who that pretty girl was before he could explain. She said that if it were Himawari, maybe she'd back off. All of a sudden, Ace power exploded, surprising even Namiki. Even so, she didn't hesitate, saying she'd always admired him back in school. When he protected her from a bully, she started seeing him differently. She'd been into him since she joined the dojo. Remembering how Head encouraged her when she felt like giving up, the problem was, he always looked at Himawari in that special way, and when she heard about his death, she felt this huge emptiness. Now seeing him next to Hachi, she yelled, asking why it had to be her of all people. Hachi almost got hit, but Namiki jumped in front to protect her. AI said she would never forgive him for that, and Shinji laughed, explaining that his power boosted negative emotions until they turned into curses. That only made Namiki even angrier while Shinji kept that arrogant smile. The spell kicked in on AI again, and she begged them to stop, and the MC realized fighting like that would only hurt her more. He hesitated for a moment, not knowing what to do. That's when Himawari rushed Shinji and smashed the accessory he used to activate his powers. Shocked, he jumped back, quickly putting distance between himself and the group. Himawari got ready to attack again, but Shinji yelled for her to stop, saying it was enough already. He raised his voice, saying he wouldn't lose to anyone. Then he unleashed his enchanting ability with even more intensity. AI was taken over again, while Shinji ordered her to give herself to him completely. Seeing that, Namiki asked how he could hurt her like that. He tried to get closer, but Shinji's power was feeding hate, envy, sadness, and shame inside her. Shinji wanted to take all those feelings for himself and get stronger. Under the hypnosis, AI agreed to hand over her power, and the energy flowed into his body. Himawari was stunned, while Hachi muttered that he was the worst kind of exploiter, someone who used negative emotions for his own benefit. Shinji smiled, satisfied as he felt the power growing inside him. Himawari moved first to stop it, but Shinji threw her back using his gravity. Her movements locked up in midair, and he bragged about being stronger even under pressure. Himawari didn't give up, determined to save AI. Shinji laughed and taunted her, saying it was all her fault, and that she should kneel. The gravity got even heavier, until Namiki stepped in to keep her from getting hurt. He told Shinji to stop, accusing him of hurting the people he cared about. Shinji, though, called the MC a hypocrite who pretended to be a hero. The gravity pressure dropped onto Namiki, trying to force him to his knees. But even using his upgraded version, Shinji realized it wasn't working. The protagonist asked what kind of messed up thing Head done up to now. Without answering, Shinji cranked the power up to extreme high gravity. Even then, he couldn't do any damage, and he was stunned. Hachi watched proudly, telling him to give it up. Furious, Shinji decided to attack AI to hurt Namiki. Himawari screamed for him to stop, but it was too late. In the blink of an eye, the MC appeared behind him and slashed him with his sword, calling him a villain. His scream of pain echoed through the floor, while Shinji clutched his injured hand. No one ran to help him. Dazed, he asked how that was possible since Namiki was level 100. Then the protagonist stepped closer and revealed he was level 6000 now, grabbing him by the collar. Then he dropped him to the floor and told Hachi to use healing magic on him. She agreed, even if reluctantly, and accepted the request through their mental link. Over time, the injured explorers were taken away for treatment, including the girls Shinji had controlled. Aoi called out to Himawari, crying and apologizing for everything. Himawari held her hand and said she didn't need to blame herself. She also told Namiki to rest, promising things would be okay even as she was taken somewhere safe. Aoi kept begging for forgiveness through her tears. The group just watched as the injured were carried off, and Namiki asked Himawari if she was okay even with her head down. She said yes. She also asked if he was okay, and smiled in relief when she saw he was safe. That smile brought back childhood memories, when she was his inspiration and the person he admired most. Hachi laughed at the light mood between them, until Ishibara came running over to talk. He thanked Namiki for saving everyone from Orochi's attack, making him a little embarrassed. Ishibara explained that out of Orochi's 6 bodies, 3 had been defeated. A huge step forward for humanity. On top of that, they'd managed to capture Shinji thanks to his intervention. Since they were already on the 4th floor, they decided to head back to base. Several explorers praised Namiki for defeating Orochi so easily. All that admiration even left the protagonist not sure how to react. Hachi said mentally that she'd taken out the tails on purpose, and he shouldn't forget that he agreed to make it up to her later, and Ishibara asked him to say his name again. When he introduced himself, a lot of people remembered he was the explorer who first reached level 100. Some whispered, saying it was weird for someone considered weak to become so powerful even if he'd leveled up fast. Beating Orochi like that seemed unbelievable. Himawari cut off the murmurs, and Ishibara admitted some of the comments had been rude. Still, they officially thanked him and said they could offer a reward. Namiki was surprised to hear that, until Hachi whispered mentally that she wanted something special. He got that she meant the barrels of alcohol, and smiled, remembering their weakness. Later on, Namiki left the dungeon and stretched, feeling like it'd been forever since he'd seen the sky. Hachi praised him for the hard work, but pointed out that the person he admired hadn't come along. Himawari stayed behind to help clean up the place, and Hachi asked if that bothered him. He said it didn't, since she'd always been the type to help others, and he wanted to be someone who could support her. Just then, Ayaka walked up to talk to him. The next day, Namiki and Hachi went together to the Explorers Association, in the dungeon city in the commercial district. As they walked, Hachi said she was stuck in a mobile game and couldn't clear the level, so the main guy explained that she needed to recharge energy, or wait a day to keep going. She was surprised because she didn't know what recharge meant, and he said it involved money. Confused, she asked what paid gacha was, and he explained it was paying to get random characters or items. Sometimes you got really strong rewards, but other times it was just normal stuff since it all depended on luck. Hachi got pissed when she realized she had to spend a lot to get stronger in the game. The MC agreed, saying gacha games worked like that. Worried because she didn't have money, she asked what she could do. He suggested she could work or open an account, or even become an explorer like him, even disguised with a big hood. Hachi still drew attention everywhere she went. In the previous battle, lots of people had seen her true form, and the news was already starting to spread. Namiki knew that if she wasn't careful, rumors about who she was could turn dangerous. There was also the damage done in the city, and they couldn't let anyone find out Hachi was the real disaster level Orochi. All of a sudden, she yelled at Namiki for not paying attention, and he apologized for getting lost and thought. Hachi asked if he was worried again. Like the day they met laughing, she announced she'd decided to become an adventurer, which completely caught him off guard. Namiki tried to explain that in her current state that could be complicated. He wondered if the association would accept someone like her. But Hachi said that with his influence now, maybe they could pull it off. He said it wasn't that simple, and she smiled, admitting she really just wanted to make money to spend on gacha. On the way, Namiki said she'd been playing nonstop since the day before, and Hachi complained she didn't want to interrupt her progress. From the top of a building, some people watched the two of them in silence as they headed to the association's headquarters. When they arrived, Ayaka greeted them with a smile, saying she'd been waiting for them. Right away, the MC introduced Hachi as a friend. She teased, asking if she couldn't be called a servant, and he told her to cut it out. Ayaka laughed at their bickering and led them inside the building. Namiki asked why they'd been called, and Ayaka said she'd explain everything in the office and guided them to the elevator. She mentioned that, during the subjugation of Orochi, she saw how well the two of them fought. When she reported that to the association, the senior manager showed interest in meeting him, leaving the MC surprised by the news. Ayaka added that Himawari and Ishihara had been called too. She said they could go the next day, but she'd rather they come with her right away. Soon after they reached headquarters, and Namiki wondered why the manager wanted to talk to him. Hachi spoke to him mentally, asking if Head felt anything weird. As they went up, a powerful presence seemed to be getting closer. Namiki agreed, feeling like they'd been watched for a long time. Hachi warned him to stay sharp on the 48th floor. Ayaka led them to a door, went in first asking permission, and the manager turned to greet them. The receptionist, now that she'd done her job, leaves the room, leaving the MC alone with the guy in the suit. He introduces himself as the president of the Explorers Association, and greets the protagonist. Then he immediately asks who the girl next to him is while the old man keeps up the formalities. Haruka figures that even with that dopey face he's really strong, and Hachi says that even if she doesn't know what he is, he's hiding something. The protagonist doesn't get why they were called in there right away, and asks if the old guy wants something. With a sly little smile, the president says he wants to thank him for helping subjugate Orochi the other day and catching the criminals. Right after that, he turns all excited, saying Kayagaku told him about their amazing fight, and he's impressed that the kid took down 3 disaster-class forms with a single hit. Suddenly the guy in the suit gets more serious, and asks if Haruka had made a contract with the villain. Quickly, the young guy notices that aura and gets scared. He even tries to analyze the guy, but his partner reminds him he doesn't have detection skills. The woman says the old man was using a mythical class spell and she can't read his status. Hearing that, the protagonist asks if that was the same magic she used before. The girl in turn says it's exactly that, and says she doesn't know what it is, but for sure that guy has a ton of information. Seeing the old man isn't just some ordinary person, she asks her teammate to stay behind her. After that, the suited guy activates a skill suggesting they test what they can do. Meanwhile, out in the hallway, 2 co-workers from that room walk by, asking if they were already in there, and the secretary says they're probably chatting with her boss. Suddenly, the door falls on her head. Automatically, Himari pulls out her sword, curious about what was going on, because she felt a huge source of energy. The protagonist tells his partner not to get too close. After that, the president fires his skill at Haruka. The boy even tries to use his divine observation, but he can't. The young guy turns to Haichi and says he'll leave Hayagaku and Ishihara for her to handle. Then the guy runs toward Himari, thinking that now it's all or nothing. The protagonist tries to neutralize his enemy's attack, but he only manages to split it. Seeing there's no way to avoid it, the boy hugs his partner to protect her. However, Haichi steps in front, taking all the damage and revealing her true appearance. Even after that, the girl asks with a smile if the young guy was hurt. Panicking, Haruka says he's fine, but he worries about her injuries, and the woman explains she just let her guard down. Himari thanks her for the help, and says they need to treat those wounds quickly, but she seems totally unconcerned about it. Right after that, Haichi decides to use a skill to heal her injuries, leaving the girl surprised because she was back to normal in a matter of seconds. The protagonist asks if his teammate was really okay, and the woman says yes. After that, she says they'll have to take things seriously from then on, otherwise they're gonna end up dead. The old man in turn is impressed because the 2 of them were better than the report said. That makes him even more excited to fight them, and the young ones are ready too. But the secretary shows up screaming like a maniac, telling them to stop that, so everyone decides to cool it and starts cleaning up that mess. Then the president apologizes for going overboard. His secretary says Shed already told him about Namiki's status, and that if he went all out, he'd end up destroying and damaging the area around them. Then she asks him to think about that, and the man says he understands. Not understanding anything, Haruka walks up asking what was going on there. After that, the woman explains they called him there just to examine him, finding out that the 2 of them could become their enemies. The girl asks if Haichi was the Orochi of disaster, leaving everyone there really surprised, and the girl in turn gets curious about how they know that. Then the president shows her, and the woman feels another presence inside him. Realizing who it was, Haichi says that thing lives in the depths of the dungeon, or at least that's where it's supposed to be. The protagonist asks if his teammate knows him, and the girl reveals they have a history together. Right after that, she says she figured Lindworm would stay away from humans and not make a contract with them. Haruka realizes they have a connection and wonders if there are other dragons. Before they continue the conversation, Haichi gets curious about who the secretary at his side was, making her feel awkward. The suited guy explains that she was half human and half monster, and Shed made a contract with his mother. Himari says Shed heard about people like that, but this was the first time Shed'd seen one in person. The girl says other people didn't know about her other side, so she keeps it a secret, But when she gets emotional, some things end up so she tries as hard as she can to keep herself under control, otherwise she won't be able to live in the dungeon city. Hamari asks if she faces prejudice, and the secretary says people don't have a good image of hybrids. However, Haichi found out her secret when she was still in human form. The woman in turn says she's always lived in a dungeon, besides the fact she didn't hide it all that well. The protagonist raises his hand, saying he'd been suspicious too. Hearing that, Haruka scolds his teammate, warning that he should have said something about it earlier. Hamari asks if in that case Kayagaku was telling the truth earlier about Haichi being a disaster-class orky, and she says yes. Ishihara can't believe a huge dragon turned into something so beautiful. After that, the girl gets curious about what all that was, and the protagonist begs for forgiveness, saying he'll explain everything later. But for now, he asks her to calm down with a smile. The president says things were getting interesting, and suggests taking the conversation somewhere else. In the meeting room, the secretary says that according to the investigation results, Haruka and Haichi aren't enemies. Then she thanks both of them for cooperating, but the old man says they still look like they've got their guard up. The protagonist thinks how obvious that is, because just moments ago the president attacked him, and on top of that he's a contracted lindworm. After that, the man says the boy can relax because Haichi was a disaster-class Orochi, and still protected humans in the fight. He also says this little disagreement won't make them enemies. The boss says that in that case, the two of them can trust him. Right after that, his subordinate thanks everyone's efforts in the Orochi subjugation squad with a smile. The woman asks them to keep everything that happened a secret, and says they'll receive a reward. Himari even tries to give her opinion, but the guy bows, showing gratitude for everything. After that, he tells Haruka that from that moment on, he's officially a rank A explorer. The young man, in turn, admits he's a little nervous since he was only rank D, but the old man remembers the protagonist proving his worth in the last fight, so he believes he's qualified. Himari asks him to think about it a bit more, because she's been watching him fight this whole time. With that, both sides come to an agreement. The boss then decides that in that case, they can officially let Haichi join the association. Hearing that, the girl hugs the protagonist, excited that they can stay together. Himari, meanwhile, watches them with a threatening look, telling her partner to explain in detail what the relationship between the two is. Meanwhile, in the city, people already know the news about a rank D guy becoming rank A out of nowhere, but they think it's just fake news. On someone's phone nearby, there were only articles about that promotion. A guy who looks like Michael Jackson shows up, curious about what she was looking at and if he can take a look. And a blonde little girl named Ichigo says he can look all he wants, while she's in the bath. Himari remembers when her village was invaded by monsters. The girl steps in front of Haruka to protect him, and asks if he's okay. The young man reassures her, saying it was just a tiny scratch. The woman then gets curious why those things were in the village, and with her guard down, a creature attacks her. Seeing that, the protagonist grabs his sword and is ready to go after the monster. However, Himari steps in front, taking a hit to the shoulder. Seeing that, Haruka starts crying, promising to get stronger so that one day he can protect her. Back in the present, Haichi is trying on some clothes in a shop, and asks her coworker what he thinks. The boy then says it doesn't look bad on her at all, and Himari for her part doesn't hold back on the compliments and says it looks perfect. Right after that, they get curious how the woman managed to hide her tail, and she explains she got some tips from Kayagaku. Haruka comments that the two of them are spending a lot of time together. The woman decides to buy that outfit, but she's still not satisfied and already calls for them to go to another store. Himari asks her to wait a bit, because she needed to pay first. However, Haichi reveals she's completely broke. After that, she asks if the protagonist can pay this time. The guy is fine with it, but before he does anything, his coworker offers to pay the bill. Haruka says she doesn't need to do that, and the girl says it's fine. Haichi helped her the other day, so this way they'll be even. Hearing that, the woman gets all excited, saying she was a good person. Then she asks if she can call her just Himari from now on, and she says that's fine. After a while, they go to a cafe where the protagonist thanks her for the help earlier, and the girl laughs, joking that apparently it was good she was there. Haichi gets bored, asking if it isn't time to go back home already. The guy in turn says yes, and the woman starts humming, saying it was time for revenge. Haruka's surprised that she's planning to keep playing once they get home. Hearing that, Himari looks kinda bothered, wondering if they live together, and the guy says yeah. The protagonist explains the girl didn't have money to find another place. Haichi says that obviously she'd stay by her master's side. After that, Himari gets curious why the woman calls her partner like that, then she pins the boy against the wall, asking if he was into that stuff, and he gets even more nervous. All of a sudden the girl suggests that she and Haichi live together. The woman says she can't leave her master's side, but Himari says he can come too. After that, the protagonist's phone starts vibrating, and he leaves the table to see what it was. It was Kayagaku saying there's an urgent request for his Explorers Association. The secretary says a huge number of goblins showed up on the 3rd floor of the dungeon, and one of them is the goblin champion. Because of that, a lot of people got hurt, and the woman asks if they can swing by there. After that, the group accepts the request and heads to the place inside. Haichi gets curious if her master wasn't tired since they'd been running for a long time. But the guy says there's still more than 1 kilometer, which bums his teammate out. Then she asks why they're going on foot. The protagonist remembers that the woman can only move fast where there's water, and there isn't any here. Haichi then suggests they use some car, but Himari says they don't have permission to use the association's vehicles and there's a whole process. The girl says when they went to wipe out Orochi they put in a request, but they didn't get anything. They couldn't keep control of the vehicle arrangements because of the emergencies. Haichi gets discouraged by humans insisting on rules, and the protagonist explains they keep order. After that, Haruka notices the place's upkeep and gets curious where they got those resources. Suddenly, his head starts to hurt, and his partner asks if he was okay. The guy says yes and thanks her for worrying. Soon they spot a light at the end of the tunnel, and when they get there they don't get what happened. In front of them were a bunch of goblins down, knocked to the ground. The boy says it looks like someone got there before them. After that they realize that guy who looks like Michael Jackson was standing there smiling at them. The protagonist wonders if he took care of the creatures all by himself, but the guy says he had someone else. Hearing that, the 3 of them get on alert, and Haruka says he doesn't see anyone else, but the man says he's wrong again, because his partner was right by his side. All of a sudden the young guy notices the girl's presence, leaving him confused about when she got that close without him noticing. The mysterious guy in turn reveals she'd been there from the start. Then the girl opens her mouth to say the protagonist was strong. Next the girl lunges at Haruka, but he manages to dodge and is impressed by how fast his opponent is. The girl says his strength wasn't a lie, and because of that she decided she'd be honest too. After that, the battle continues and Mia explains her teammate was testing Hamera's skills. Ichigo, on the other hand, says it still wasn't enough and keeps up her string of attacks. The protagonist gets desperate, trying to get the girl's attention. Himari wonders how that kid was so strong. After that, the girl activates a vibration skill on the woman's body. She realizes that if she keeps this up, she'll end up getting overloaded. Ichigo tells the woman to give it everything she's got, and she tells her not to underestimate her. After that, Himari focuses all her muscles, and the girl understands it's a body enhancement. Next, the 2 of them clash and get pushed back, making both of them respect each other, but the kid says the brawl still isn't over. Himari doesn't back down and charges at her opponent too. But before the 2 cross again, Mari uses a skill to swap their positions, avoiding a fight. Ichigo tells her partner not to do unnecessary stuff. The guy apologizes for getting in the way, but what matters is they're not far. Haruka says the man's right because the real danger was coming toward them. Meanwhile, some guy shows up running from a monster, but he can't get much farther. After that, several monsters like that one appear, and behind them there was an even bigger one leading them. Himari asks if her partner is sure, and he says yes. The boy says it was 30 creatures and a higher level being, and they'll be there in 1 minute. Mari is impressed by the protagonist's abilities. Ichigo notices his teammate was staring at the others and says that was disgusting. The guy says the situation is serious, so the 2 of them will work together. Right after that, the monsters show up, running after other explorers, seeing the biggest one of all. Haruka assumes it's the leader of the pack. After that, the system gives the best route to deal with the situation, making the protagonist realize they can do this together. So the boy tells Himari to move forward with that child, and tells Haichi to provide cover. As for him, he'll save the innocents and handle the big one. But before anything else, the young man introduces himself to the pair, and asks if Mia can help the girls, and he agrees right away. The would-be king of pop is impressed that the protagonist managed to come up with a plan using everyone's abilities so quickly. A creature lunges at Himari, but she manages to defend herself and counterattack. The woman realizes those things were moving in a more sophisticated way like the explorers. Ichigo tells her to stay sharp because there were more monsters behind her. Himari easily takes them all out with her sword. Even the little girl noticed the creatures were acting strangely. Right after that, She asks Mia for something, and suddenly the girl's axe becomes huge. The monsters run toward her, but with just one swing of her weapon she wipes them all out. After that, the undead leader goes crazy and runs at an adventurer. Seeing that Haruka wonders if that was a unique skill, then he warns Haichi that the monster was a problem. The woman supports her master so he can push forward. With that distraction, the protagonist manages to land several hits on the monster, finishing it off, and the two of them level up. Haruka and his partner celebrate the victory. Meanwhile, Hamari starts staring at her teammate in silence, and he asks if something was wrong. But with a smile on her face, she says it's nothing. Then she starts thinking about how the guy has changed a lot. The adventurers who were in danger bow, thanking them for the earlier help, but the boy says they don't need to treat him like that. Hamari smiles, saying she's really proud of the protagonist, making him feel awkward. The boy remembers when people used to mock him for being a weak level 100 before he died. But now it was different because he's gotten a little stronger now, and he's made reliable friends. Haruka doesn't know why he has the god's testability, and hopes that one day he'll be able to understand. But for that, they'll need to explore even deeper into the dungeon. Right now the protagonist is 21 years old, and a rank, and his family members are missing. As for his personality, he's someone affectionate, with huge patience and care. His favorite hobbies are sewing and admiring swords. Haruka was raised in an orphanage in the dungeon city since childhood, and that's how he met Hamari Tachibana. After that, he started attending the dojo his father ran in the slums. The woman, meanwhile, is 24 years old and a rank explorer. She's from the Flow district, where she was raised by a single-parent family. The girl's pastimes are tea ceremonies along with calligraphy. Her mother ended up passing away from an illness when she was still in elementary school, so she was raised by her father. After that, she started dedicating herself to martial arts at the dojo, mastering skills with the sword, spear, and archery. When she was in high school, she made her debut as an explorer and got media attention as a genius girl. Because of the public reaction and her popularity at the time, an unofficial fan club was secretly formed 7 years ago. An incident happened with those two, where an unidentified monster attacked Haruka while he was training at the dojo. Hamari tried to help him but got hurt in the process. When the authorities arrived, the creature fled, and its goals are still a mystery to this day. Mia says that episode was the trigger that changed the relationship between the two teenagers. All of a sudden, Kyo Goku asks him to calm down a bit. The guy gets curious if something was wrong, and the woman says they asked for a combat report from Haruka, but he was going in a completely different direction. And the serious-faced guy in a suit asks if they could continue with the report. Mia, for his part, apologizes for getting a bit carried away. Back to the explanation, the man says that during the battle with Haruka the other day, there was an interesting point because both the name of his special ability and its details were unknown. But are you sure the kid made a contract with the disaster class Orochi? Then he says the protagonist was called a mystery because he's a level 100 newbie. Mia says this can only be a bug because he leveled up way too fast. The old man, in turn, says he also got curious about it because when he fought him in his room and activated his mythic class magic, the boy shouted divine prediction. After that, he was pretty shocked by his fast and precise movements. Mia also mentions that the other day the protagonist's leadership was excellent, even though Head figured out their abilities in such a short time. The president then says Haruka could be a potential danger because he definitely has a secret. Still, he admits he's someone genuinely interesting. Kayagaku, in turn, asks if it wouldn't be more interesting to have his private evaluations leaked. The girl suggests the investigation should continue, and the old man orders Mia to keep going with his mission. The guy then leaves, deciding to go, but before he goes out, the receptionist asks him to let her know when there's another report. Then the man thinks about how he really doesn't want the old man as his enemy. Outside, he runs into Ichigo. The girl gets curious about what he was talking about with the president, but the guy says it was nothing important. After that, Mia says the girl can form a team with Haru, and when she hears that she gets happy, the man then wonders if Haruka is going to bite on this offer now. Some time passes and Himari is standing somewhere, wondering where her teammates were. Suddenly the two idiots show up running, and Haichi asks why they're running again. The protagonist explains they were super late because the girl took forever to wake up. The woman in turn says she couldn't even sleep until dawn. Still, the boy says he told them they were leaving early. Haichi says that place doesn't even have good items. But Haruka says he's tired of her excuses. Right after that, the girl apologizes to Himari for being late, but she says it's fine. The woman hugs the girl, thanking her for her kindness, and says she's really different from a certain master after that. Mia shows up with his friend and apologizes for being late too. The guy explains that Ichigo never wakes up because she has low blood pressure, which makes her weak in the morning. After that, the group goes into the dungeon with the goal of wiping out the boss and his underlings in the deepest part. Haruka asks Mia where this request came from, since it wasn't listed on the Explorers Guild bulletin board. Besides, it comes with a really fat reward, around 5 million. Haichi says if they split it, that's about 1 million each, which gets her excited to spend it all on her game. Right after that, Mia asks the others to just trust him. Even though he can't reveal the client's details, Ichigo starts giving him a hard time, and the guy tells her to forget about it for a bit. After that, he remembers how the girl got pretty excited about the idea of forming that team again. The blonde, in turn, says it's not really like that, but someone else might be thinking that way. The protagonist apparently gets the hint, but decides to focus on the objective. Haruka thinks about how his life completely changed after getting divine prediction, but there's still a lot about the skill he doesn't know. On the bright side, he can gain a ridiculous amount of XP, but if an explorer found out, they'd want to get their hands on it. Suddenly, the boy feels that same headache from before again. Haruka notices he's acting weird and gets worried, but the protagonist reassures her, saying he's fine. After that, the protagonist says he feels like he's about to remember something important, and the girl, in turn, doesn't understand anything, but her teammate can't really explain it properly either. Suddenly, he's informed that disaster-class monsters were approaching fast. The protagonist activates his divine prediction skill to calculate battle strategies. Seeing the boy staying silent, Mia gets curious about what's going on. Haruka realizes he's being watched, and gets annoyed. The young man thinks about how he believed he was just a mysterious person, but he's starting to suspect him. Haichi admits that guys' thoughts are hard to read. The protagonist says divine predictions split them into two groups, and for that hell need her help. After that, the woman warns there were multiple goblin knights among the enemies, and getting surrounded by a group like that could be a huge problem, so to avoid that, it's better for them to split up. After that, Haichi tells Himari to go with Mia to the right passage and wait, while she goes left with Haruka and Ichigo to set up an ambush. Himari, in turn, asks why her teammate is talking like that, and the woman says she'll explain everything later. Even though she doesn't like that answer, the girl accepts it. Before leaving, she asks the protagonist to be careful, and he says they'll meet again when it's all over. Then the group splits up and takes their positions. Mia realizes they sent him away on purpose. After that, Himari asks if the guy is good at hand-to-hand combat, but he says he knows the basics. The woman explains that the enemies specialize in group tactics, so she comes up with a plan, and hell watch their back. Hearing that, Mia says the girl really gives off serious person vibes, the complete opposite of the protagonist, so he asks if the two of them were dating, and Himari gets embarrassed by the comment. After that, the girl says that topic is totally inappropriate, and the guy says he's just trying to break the ice. Suddenly, a goblin riding a wolf tries to attack Himari, but she manages to defend herself. Mia asks if they can finally start the battle. Right after that, the girl charges in, but one of the creatures uses its mist. She knows that's bad because it completely blocks her vision. A goblin comes up behind her and steals her sword. Seeing she was getting cornered, Himari wonders where Mia disappeared to. After that, the woman gets knocked to the ground and pinned down by the monsters. When she sees their nasty faces, the girl immediately understands what they're planning to do and starts screaming for them not to do anything. She even tries to do something, but she can't get any strength into her body. Himari calls the creatures trash, but before she can keep insulting them, one of them bites her shoulder as she screams in pain. The goblin looks at her like it's enjoying it. She thinks about how that species sees women and children as nothing but targets for their lust, so they probably want to break her will to fight, but monsters like that don't have the ability to drain the strength from her body, so she assumes it's because of the mist from before. The wound on the girl's shoulder starts getting worse, and she starts getting desperate, trying to find a way out. Himari thinks about how pathetic she is for letting her guard down, and she gets frustrated just imagining Haruka seeing her like this. One of the goblins grabs her dagger to finish the job, but before that can happen, he gets hypnotized and drops the weapon, even without knowing what's going on. The woman decides not to waste this chance. The girl manages to break free, but she knows that if she stops fighting, she won't be able to get out of the situation. One of the goblins attacks from behind, but she manages to turn quickly and hit him with an arrow. Other monsters try to surround her, but Himari manages to dodge and then finish off the wolf. The exhaustion from the wound on her shoulder starts getting more intense, and the girl thinks she needs to deal with it fast. Right after that, she finds her sword on the ground and runs to grab it, but as a result, she ends up taking a shot in the back. Even so, the woman gets up one more time and activates an ability on her sword. Our video ends here. If you liked it, leave your like. See you next time. Bye bye.